Hey everyone, we'll get started now. Thank you all for joining us this Wednesday night. So just to start, my name is Alex Cousins. I'm a management analyst for the City of Claremont. I'm responsible for our Cannabis initiative and leading these meetings as well as our future listening and learn sessions. So we've prepared a brief overview and presentation. The majority of the meeting will be reserved for public comment, so you all have the opportunity to share your thoughts and feedback on cannabis regulation and zoning in the City of Claremont. So the City Council later this year will consider the regulations and ordinances. So part of this conversation today is kind of directing what the future of that will look like. So no decisions will be made during tonight's meeting. The purpose of the meeting is to gather feedback from the community on cannabis regulation. There may be council members or commissioners in attendance, but they won't be participating. And if you do wish to speak with them, we recommend you contact them outside of these meetings. So I'm guessing we have varying levels of knowledge in the cannabis industry in this room. So we'll briefly go over what each type of cannabis business is, so everyone has at least a base level understanding. So you can see there's a long process, and most of people's interaction with cannabis is that end product. So whether that's the plant, the bud, or some other type of consumption method. So it starts with the cultivation. The pictures here, the modern type of cultivation operations we see. So now with the legal market, 80% are grown indoors. So it allows for a lot more control over the end product, a lot less issues that you would have if the product was grown outdoors. It's much more efficient. You can get a lot more plants out of a small amount of space. So next is the manufacturing. So on the left here, you see there's an oil tech product, and on the right is drinks. So the legalization of cannabis has led to an increased popularity of different cannabis type products. So these can include things like tinctures for muscle pain, edibles, drinks, and oils. So it allows consumers to utilize the properties of cannabis without having to smoke the actual bud. And with the reduced stigma and the increased accessibility of cannabis, one of the largest growing consumption groups are those aged 55 years or older. And they tend to consume these types of products, so things like edibles and drinks. So here's some examples of what manufacturing can look like. On the left is a machine that turns the plant into an oil. So that oil can be used in things like edibles and drinks, or it can just be consumed on its own. And on the right is a kitchen. So it looks like any other industrial kitchen, but those are the types that would be turning the product into an edible, like a cookie or brownie or gummies. So next is the distribution. So this is the middleman between the cultivator or manufacturer and the retail store. So they act as a warehouse between the cultivator and that eventual retail. So next is the retail and dispensary. So it's typically what we think of when we think of a cannabis business. They've gone through significant changes with the legalization and regulation of cannabis. So it's no longer those ugly black buildings with blacked out windows. They look more like tech stores now. And consumers can learn about different products in these stores. They have store associates, also known as bud tenders, who can teach people, and people can go in there and find something that will work for them. These are highly regulated by local jurisdictions to ensure limited spillover to the community, and all operations are to be conducted safely. So here's just another picture of an example of a retail store. So then the next type of retail is non-storefront delivery. So these are another popular way of purchasing cannabis, so you can get it delivered to your house without having to leave. And these allow to, under state regulations, they're allowed to carry up to $10,000 worth of products at a given time, of which 5,000 can be unordered. So there's been changes over time to the delivery methods. You have things like the ice cream truck method, which means that the product is carried on the vehicle, and then the products are ordered and then they're delivered, or something like a pizza delivery method, where a consumer they purchase the product and then it's delivered to them directly. So next is the testing laboratory. The state has strict regulations for cannabis products. So they require that all cannabis batches are tested. They want to make sure that the cannabis is free of contaminants, and they're labeled with accurate information for the cannabinoids and the terpenes. So every cannabis product will show what you're consuming, and it gives the consumers a kind of a better knowledge of what they're taking. So the next type is a micro business, and this has been an increasingly popular type of business. These are vertically integrated, and they include 3 different types of activities in one facility. So this includes cultivation, manufacturing, retail, and distribution. So a business could grow their own cannabis plant, manufacture it into some type of edible, and then sell it directly in that store. And just a brief history of cannabis regulation in the city of Claremont. In 2006, in response to California's legalization of medical cannabis, the Claremont City Council adopted a ban on all commercial cannabis businesses. And next, in 2016, in response to the California Proposition 64, which legalized cannabis products for adults in the city of Claremont, in the state, City Council adopted another ordinance to continue its prohibition on both medicinal and adult use cannabis operations. In 2019, due to the slow rollout of cannabis businesses across the state and regulations, the City Council reaffirmed this ordinance from 2016. And then in early 2021, during the City Council workshop, the council requested that city staff engage the community in a discussion focused on cannabis regulation. In 2012, city staff and city's consultant HDL held 2 cannabis community workshops where they shared information regarding cannabis businesses and the regulations permitted by local jurisdictions. And as a result, the City Council placed Measure CT, the cannabis business tax, on the November 22nd municipal election. So Measure CT was passed 61% of the Claremont voters, and it taxed all components of the cannabis industry, should they be permitted in Claremont. So all the previous ones that we went over. It set a gross tax for the sale of cannabis and industrial hemp products, and established a tax on cannabis, hemp sales, delivery, cultivation, processing, testing, and distribution in the city. So earlier this year, the City Council approved the following tax rates and ranges set by Measure CT. So it's 6% for retail, the greater of 3%, or between $2 and $10 for cultivation, 2% for testing laboratories, 3% for distribution, 4% for manufacturing, and 4% for all other cannabis businesses. So as of right now, cannabis deliveries are permitted into the city of Claremont as long as they're based in outside jurisdictions. So most of the deliveries currently occurring are from licensed businesses that are in cities such as the City of LA, and staff is working with these businesses to become permitted in the city of Claremont. So the city's cannabis consultant HDL identified cannabis retail as the most supported and demanded business type in the city of Claremont. And if cannabis businesses are permitted, HDL conservatively estimates the city could generate approximately $300,000 per retail store annually in revenue. So commercial cannabis businesses must have both local approval and state license to operate. And the state gives local jurisdictions substantial authority to regulate commercial cannabis within their jurisdictions. So, for example, with zoning and land use buffers, buffers or overlays from a distance from sensitive locations. And local jurisdictions can have regulations for transportation, such as how much cash can be carried or certain insurance requirements for the drivers. There's also security requirements, such as having a certain number of security guards present on the premises, or requiring local police to have access to the surveillance cameras on the property. There's also restrictions for the consumption of cannabis, so not allowing it anywhere on the property, as well as inventory, such as requiring they have certain storage for the products overnight and limiting the consumer's access to products. So a lot of these stores now will show you the product in a glass case, but you can't interact with it directly. You have to go ask them one and tell them what you want, and they'll bring it to you. So for zoning and buffering from sensitive uses, the defaults can be increased or decreased by local jurisdictions. The state defaults are 600 feet between other licensed cannabis businesses, K through 12 schools, daycares, or youth centers. Businesses can be further restricted to certain planning zones, for example, commercial zones or mixed-use districts. So this map displays a 600-foot buffer around K through 12 schools and other sensitive uses in daycares. So it also shows this red line here is a 1,000-foot buffer around the city of Pomona. So while it's not a state regulation, the city received a reciprocal request from the city of Pomona to adopt a 1,000-foot land use buffer from the city boundaries. So it's unlikely for city staff to recommend lowering the 600-foot buffer unless there's desire from the community to do so. So here you can see South Claremont. For reference, here's the I-10. Sorry, it's a bit shaky. So here's the 1,000-foot Pomona buffer. And then up here for reference is Claremont Village. So all of these in blue are schools, and that's a 600-foot buffer. And in black are the youth centers, sensitive uses. And here for reference is North Claremont. So you can see here is the 210 and baseline here in Foothill along this area. So the same with the blue outlines being the schools and the black outlines being the other sensitive uses. We have the youth center and the TAP as well.
Is this map available on the website? Or?
It will be,
okay.
yes. So next with social equity. The state of California and local jurisdictions realize the impacts the war of drugs has on marginalized communities. And they share the goal of social equity being to promote equitable ownership and employment opportunities in the cannabis industry in order to decrease disparities in life outcomes for marginalized communities and to address the disproportionate impacts of the war on drugs in those communities. So there's various different social equity programs that other jurisdictions have done. Some of these are setting permits aside for equity applicants, so that a jurisdiction could allow 3 businesses and set aside 1 of those for an equity applicant, could allow expedited application processing, local hires as equity hires, tax revenue towards investing in marginalized communities, and application fee waivers. So that concludes our presentation. We'll now move on to the public comment section of the meeting. We'll be lining up here, I believe, one by one. So, and if we're unable to answer your questions at this time, we'll have follow-up emails and some information on our website to answer those. Thank you.
Now I have a question. You have a slide that said, conservatively speaking, we would earn $300,000 a year from taxing retail sales of marijuana, which at 6% means $5 million of sales per year in the city of Claremont, which works out to about $450 for each of the 11,000 households in Claremont. And assuming that at least half of the households in Claremont, probably more like 2/3 or 3/4, are not going to be purchasing marijuana at all. We're talking about somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,000 or more per household. I find that to be unrealistic. And my question is, can you give us an example of a city of comparable size to Claremont, which has allowed cannabis retail sales and has achieved several $100,000 in revenue?
Yeah, I don't have the data available now, but it's based on smaller and mid-sized cannabis dispensaries. They average about $5 million in West Virginia.
You have a city that's that, though.
Yeah,
It's not over Claremont.
I can share that after and give you the data.
Off the top of your head, is there many?
There's many, yes.
Can you give me one?
Not at this time, but I can share it with you.
Okay. Can I ask another question?
Of course.
Measure CT said that even without legalizing Claremont, that we would be able to get, I think, at least $100,000 a year from taxing deliveries that are made currently to Claremont residents.
Correct.
how much is, that was passed last November. Can you tell us how much the city's collected from taxing out of state deliveries?
So we've been working with HDL to generate the businesses and create a list. We now have 3 cannabis businesses that are permitted. This was about within the last month or so, so they haven't remitted any taxes yet, but they are major players in the cannabis business, and they've shared
Well,
good faith.
you have an estimate of what you're going to collect there each month on that?
Not at this time, no. We haven't got one agreements yet.
My final question is, on that map you just showed us, obviously, the 600-foot boundaries around different schools. To me, it seems to roughly coincide. Carmont's unusual in that, unlike Glendora or Pomona, where we don't have a big main business thoroughfare that goes through that's distance from neighborhoods, parks, and schools. Most of Foothill, I think, is probably the business districts on Foothill that are consumed by the colleges. The business districts are probably within that zone. And there's very few other places in Claremont that have any real place where business can operate. Have you identified, what would be an example of a place where a marijuana dispensary could go?
There's a couple. So there's this area here, which is away from any sensitive
Which
zones.
area?
With my pointer here.
I can't see the chart.
And then we have some sections of Foothill, some along baseline.
Well, okay, I mean, you're talking about the very outskirts and business parks over there, is that correct?
That's correct.
Other than that, are there any other places in Claremont where it would make sense?
We have baseline with
Well,
business
yeah,
areas.
baseline is mostly-
We have Foothill with business areas.
There's very little, there's no business areas on baseline in Claremont.
What about
There-
the old towns?
I mean, my problem is, here's my thing.
Mhm.
Obviously, the only reason anyone's going to open a cannabis dispensary in Claremont is if they can generate millions of dollars in sales. And if you go to other cities that have legalized marijuana sales, the only reason to, obviously, there's 2 models for selling marijuana in California. There's the legal model where you set up a storefront and you're licensed by the state, you pay your taxes and all that. And then there's the illegal model where you just sell it through delivery to people just off the hook, so to speak.
Mhm.
And the only advantage, now that we don't put people in prison anymore for illegally selling marijuana, I say this as someone who just retired after 36 years in the DA's office. The only reason anyone would open up a licensed cannabis dispensary is if they can guarantee that they'll be able to generate a huge amount of business. And you go to other cities, you see that they do, like the picture you show, very attractive storefront, probably in an area that is among other businesses, a business, an area like that. The idea being, some people are reluctant to buy marijuana privately or illicitly. They want the comfort of going to an open thing. I don't know of any places that just have a little place in an industrial park on the corner of town. And quite frankly, people would find it much more amenable to drive 3 more minutes to go to Pomona, where they have big stores, storefronts, and great things. So if all you're talking about is here, having somebody having some outlet in an industrial park, I think it's rather absurd to think that anyone's going to make a substantial investment in doing that. And other than that, I don't think it's identified, and I really can't see anything where we have no other business district that's not restricted where you could pull one. So we're spending a lot of money here, but I mean, unless you can identify up front where the city wants this to be and it makes sense, I don't know what the point of this exercise is. I really do think, in any event, that the city should identify the places where the city wants to have marijuana dispensaries if they want to go down this path. We should know that right now. The city should leave it up to negotiations after we pass this thing. Because, of course, once you pass the ordinance, and if you haven't specified or made it the ordinance drawn in a way that forces cities only to go where we want, dispensaries only to go where we want them, they may have the opportunity to put them in places we don't want them. We may not have the legal recourse to stop them. So if nothing else, I think it's incumbent on the city right now to identify the locations where they would find it acceptable to have a marijuana dispensary. And unless those coincide with places that people would, it would make sense for dispensaries to invest money in open one, I think you should shut this whole thing down. That's my opinion.
Thank you. So it's important to note this is a first of many meetings. This is us taking in input just like that so that we can consider, what locations, what is the community interested in. So we do plan on bringing some locations back. This is just an early conversation. And we'll have another meeting next month, and we'll have one following in September. It's also important to note Claremont isn't in a bubble. We have a lot of people in surrounding cities that are interested in cannabis. People drive to Pomona to buy cannabis. And we hear from residents that they're interested in something closer and something that's safer. Just like you have, craft breweries, people like something smaller and more intimate. Mega cannabis dispensaries like Steezy, they generate over $25 million in gross revenue per year. So we're not looking for something like that in Claremont. We believe there's revenue potential in the city, even for smaller businesses. We're happy to take some notes, questions.
Yeah. Good evening. Thank you for this presentation. Greatly appreciate it. My name is Herman Jensen. I'm a local real estate broker of commercial real estate. It's called a banker. I'm representing actually legal cannabis company. And I don't have any financial interest, and I'm here as a citizen of Claremont. And also I'm a recreational cannabis user myself. Mostly go to sleep at night and have a good night's sleep. So it's really medicinal for me and have easy access to it. And it would be really nice to have a dispensary in Claremont. I'm a big fan of shopping in Claremont and leaving my tax dollars in Claremont. Especially around Christmas, I always urge my friends to go shop in Claremont. And that would be a great way to enhance the bottom line, I think, here in Claremont. And it would be a great miss if the city loses out on this opportunity. Because Pomona, from what I've heard, is considering moving into North Claremont around Gary Avenue, which is beyond the buffer zone you indicated. That would suck the business out of Claremont. And so I think it's time to get on board and open a dispensary in Claremont. I've observed dispensaries, a very modern dispensary in Lake Elsinore, brand new mall. There's a great synergy between the existing cannabis dispensary in that mall and the other businesses. I talked to the business owners, and there's an increase between 5 and 25% in foot traffic in business with adjacent businesses. So the whole thing that cannabis has to be out of sight and out of mind, somewhere in an industrial area, that idea is also going away slowly because businesses and cities recognize the benefit of having a dispensary in town. So overall, as far as I know and I have researched, there are no negatives really. I mean, we have liquor stores in town, and liquor stores in town less than 500 feet from a school on Arrow Highway, because if that's a concern to parents, I think it's sort of really not valid because the kids could walk into a liquor store and get liquor, but they cannot walk into a dispensary because there's an ID check and a security presence. They will not be able to get there. And as you rightly pointed out, the wares are behind glass, so nobody can shop in it at the dispensary. And so overall, super secure, great benefits to the cities, and if they would allow it close to other businesses, it should be, in my opinion, in the village, actually. And so that's my 5 cents to dispensaries in general. I hope we can move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hi, you see Alex, Brad, hello. To take on this gentleman's, in agreeing with him that my name is Murray Monroe, and I've been pushing since 2006 that Claremont do something. We had the city council vote for it 3-2 back then, and I had no idea what the process was. There was a second vote. We won again, 3-2. But the chamber at the time was a little left-leaning, no, right-leaning. And they got on board and they put this to bed. So it went from 3-2, 4-1. So Ellen Taylor stuck to her guns, and thank you, Ellen. And I just want to say that we have a number of businesses in Claremont that are, vacant. I mean, Barbara Cheeley's been gone for at least a year and a half now. And how many other boxes do we have where nothing is there, where we're losing out to Amazon? A cannabis retail store can bring in anywhere from 500 to 1,000 clients a day. Now, we got parking issues, but any business that's dying or not getting enough business, this is definitely a way to take care of foot traffic. So we have a number of ways to meet this, and I look forward to seeing what you guys come up with, and we're happy to help out. So I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
I was just gonna agree that it should be closed, add to that it should be closed to other businesses.
Thank you.
And thanks, first of all, thanks for the presentation. You guys have obviously put a lot of thought into this, and it's clear that you're serious about getting it right. My name is Mike Getman. I'm with Nectar Markets. We're a multi-state operator. We've got 47 stores now across California, Oregon, and Ohio. In my role within the company is to help kind of assess new markets, make decisions about where we go, where we don't go, and why. There's a couple things I want to just interject into this conversation early on. One of which is, to echo a little bit of the sentiments around the location of retail. California is a very unique market because of the entrenched black market that exists everywhere. So, the reality is, once you guys open a recreational program in the city, new people aren't going to start consuming marijuana products. It's just going to be, fewer people are going to be consuming untested, untaxed marijuana products. More will be shifting into retail stores. But the cost component's a huge factor there, right? Because our stores carry massive costs that are totally unique to cannabis. Not the least of which is federal tax code. So we don't get to write off our lease payments. We don't get to write off staffing. We don't get to write off cameras. We don't even get to write off the tax we pay to the state and the city oftentimes. So you might see these huge numbers in here, for example, about city running $25 million a year. First of all, what's going to happen when those big Pomona shops are going to lose half of that revenue is going to immediately come over here because citizens from the city are traveling to purchase there. And then long term, the other thing I think has to be kept in mind is that these are depreciating assets in terms of their sales. More and more cities will open up. Neighboring cities will see the positive effects that cannabis has had on this community and will follow suit. And so really, it's easy to plan, it's easy to base your projections off of those big numbers you see in siloed markets, but the long-term average drops. And we know that from Oregon because we've got a dispensary in Oregon for every 4,600 man, woman, child residents in the state. And that's kind of where my company's had its teeth. And so, I think there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen about not what's going to be economically viable for these retailers in year 1, 2, and 3, but what happens in year 7, 8, and 10, because that's what we're dealing with in Oregon. And the overissuance of retail permits combined with, very high cost of compliance that everybody else has, means that the tax collection rate actually can go down over time. as a result of economic instability of the businesses within the community. The reason I point to that is a couple things. First of all, the proposed tax rates, I think, are really in line with the long-term competitive stance, which we like. Siloing businesses off of main drags has shown time and time again to be a major problem. If you park a business down on York in the industrial or something like that, people just won't go. It's more convenient for them to get delivery to their homes from neighboring cities, right? So it's not just we put the stores, it's not like a build it and they will come, because people have entrenched purchasing habits that are directing tax revenue out of this community right now. And it will actually take work and time to claw that tax revenue back into its right place. So, again, I think I really like the style you guys are doing with the multiple listening sessions. It gives an opportunity for us to really, partner with the community and do the best job we can to provide the best service and the best tax revenue long term. So, thanks for hearing me out.
Great, thank you. Don't be shy.
I neither oppose this, I really don't have a yay or nay on this. Concern I do have, because I've lived in Claremont for 29 years, is that it is something that people do. And I have family, I have coworkers, and it's done for pain relief. It's done for health reasons. It's done for bad reasons too. Besides that, I feel that any decisions made by the city should be well looked into. And that everything I've heard come up here is the money, the money, the money. Yes, we all like money, but I haven't heard anybody say we want to keep our neighborhoods with the feel that we have. I don't know if, changing of what is a residential area, well, let's change these lines and make it into a business area, which when, I moved in my house 29 years ago, we're residential. I don't want to see lines changed because of this. Because yes, there are areas in, the main Foothill, whatever you want to call it, the village. I don't recall what your map said. I think with the gentleman who said over here, you have the areas, I think they were lined off as to where we couldn't do it, correct? I think it would be nice to see a map of the areas that it could be instead of what couldn't be. Because that's ultimately where the businesses will be placed. Another thing that I want to say is I've traveled out of state. I've traveled just up north, and there are certain areas you can go and just, going to go find something to eat and you don't know the area. You go down a long block and there's 5 stores. And